Welcome to this deep dive from Optic Surgeon, the ophthalmology podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling a really interesting and, well, sometimes pretty alarming phenomenon, transient loss of vision.
Yeah, that temporary fleeting loss of sight.
Exactly. We're going to explore the different potential causes behind it, looking at, everything from the very surface of the eye right back to the brain.
hmm
The goal is really just to give you, our listeners, a clearer picture of what might be going on when vision suddenly disappears, even if it's just for a moment.
Absolutely. And it's important because while it's often brief, transient vision loss, it can be a sign of something significant. The range of possibilities is quite striking.
It really is. It's not just one or two things, is it?
Not at all. We're looking at a whole spectrum, ocular conditions, systemic conditions.
Yeah.
It's broad.
Okay, so let's start right at the front. The ocular surface, you wouldn't necessarily think of it, but even severe dry eye, that can cause it.
It definitely can. Think about the tear film. It needs to be smooth and stable for clear vision.
Hmm.
In severe dry eye, that film can become really unstable. It breaks up quickly between blinks.
Okay.
And that creates an irregular surface, optically speaking.
Yeah.
So you get temporary blurring, maybe even a feeling like the vision's just gone for a second,
Yeah.
until the tears reform.
So it's directly tied to the quality of that tear surface at any given moment.
Precisely. And, with things like lots of screen time, we see more evaporative dry eye, which might make these brief disturbances more common because that oily layer breaks down fast.
That makes sense. And what about contact lenses? You mentioned those could be an issue too.
Yeah, several things there. A lens that doesn't fit quite right, it can mechanically disrupt the cornea, causes temporary blur,
Okay.
or you could get debris, a tiny speck trapped underneath that can block the vision momentarily.
Right, like a smudge on a camera lens.
Kind of, yeah. Even the lens itself drying out can change its shape just enough to affect vision until it rehydrates, so you take it out.
Okay, so surface stuff covered. Moving a bit deeper then to the cornea itself. Recurrent corneal erosions were mentioned. What's happening there?
So with RCEs, the very top layer of the cornea, the epithelium, it just doesn't stick down properly to the layer underneath it. So often when someone wakes up, just opening the eyelids can sort of pull on that loose layer.
Ouch. Sounds unpleasant.
It can be painful, yeah. And it definitely causes temporary blurred vision because the corneal surface is suddenly uneven. Once it smooths out, vision clears up.
And what about something like superficial punctate keratopathy? Sounds less dramatic, but still relevant.
It does sound minor, but SBK, as we call it, involves tiny little spots or erosions on the corneal surface.
Okay.
Think of the cornea like a really smooth window. Each spot is tiny, but if you get enough of them, they scatter light.
I see. So it degrades the clarity.
Exactly. It can lead to reduced clarity or vision that seems to fluctuate. Temporary changes.
Interesting. Now let's shift gears a bit. Intraocular pressure fluctuations. Most people think of high pressure with glaucoma, which is sustained, but temporary spikes.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's about blood flow. The optic nerve and retina have this really delicate blood supply.
Right.
A sudden, sharp rise in eye pressure, even if it's brief, could theoretically squeeze those blood vessels momentarily.
Okay, so it impedes the flow.
It could, yeah. Like stepping on a garden hose for just a second. The flow reduces or stops. And that temporary dip in blood supply can cause vision to dim or blur.
That makes a lot of sense visually. Okay, let's talk about something that often sounds more urgent. Retinal vascular events. Amaurosis fugax is the classic term, right? The curtain?
Yes, amaurosis fugax. The description is often like a curtain coming down or sometimes going up across the vision in one eye.
What's the key takeaway there?
The critical thing is that this is often a sign of a temporary blockage of blood flow to the retina itself, usually caused by a tiny embolus, a bit of cholesterol plaque, or a small clot.
Where does that come from?
Often, it breaks off from a larger artery upstream, like the carotid artery in the neck.
Yeah.
When the blockage clears, flow returns, vision returns.
So it's a major warning sign.
Absolutely. It's considered a TIA, a transient ischemic attack of the eye. It needs prompt investigation, often including looking at those carotid arteries, because the risk of a larger stroke is increased.
And you mentioned systemic conditions earlier. How does something like, say, hypertension fit into this picture?
Well, chronic high blood pressure damages blood vessels everywhere, including the ones feeding the eye and the ones like the carotids where these plaques can form.
So it increases the risk of those little emboli breaking off.
Exactly. Makes the whole system more vulnerable to these kinds of events.
Okay. Moving further back now, the optic nerve. Gaze-evoked amaurosis. Vision loss triggered by looking in a certain direction.
Yeah, that's quite specific, isn't it? Vision dims or blurs only when you look a certain way.
What should that make us think about?
It raises suspicion for something possibly compressing the optic nerve,
Sure.
maybe a mass or lesion nearby. So when the eye moves into a particular position, it might briefly increase that pressure on the nerve, disrupting its function temporarily. Move the eye back, pressure eases, vision recovers.
And could temporary swelling or inflammation of the optic nerve itself cause fleeting vision loss?
Yes, definitely. Optic neuritis, inflammation of the nerve, even if it's mild or just starting, could cause transient visual symptoms.
Like dimming or blurriness.
Exactly. As the inflammation fluctuates, so might the visual function. We see this sometimes in conditions like multiple sclerosis, for example. It can involve transient optic nerve issues.
Right. Now let's connect this to the brain. Central nervous system causes less common, maybe, but possible.
Certainly possible. And it highlights that vision isn't just about the eyes. The brain's occipital lobe is where the processing happens.
Mm-hmm.
So certain neurological conditions affecting that area could cause visual disturbances, even if the eyes are fine, like a temporary glitch in the brain's visual computer.
And what about blood flow to the brain itself?
Yeah, things like vestibulobasilar artery insufficiency. That's basically reduced blood flow in the arteries at the back of the brain that supply the brainstem and, importantly, the visual cortex.
So that can cause temporary blurring too.
It can cause blurring, double vision, dizziness, a range of transient neurological symptoms, including visual ones.
Okay. And migraines. Lots of people experience migraine aura, sometimes without even getting the headache, right?
That's a key point. The visual aura can happen on its own. It's a classic example of a transient neurological event impacting vision.
What do people typically see?
Often described as shimmering lights, maybe zigzag lines, sometimes blind spots that seem to move or expand across the visual field. It's thought to be caused by this wave of electrical activity spreading across the visual cortex.
Fascinating. Okay, bringing it all together, thinking systemically again. Beyond hypertension and MS, any other conditions or even medications to keep in mind?
Absolutely. Other systemic inflammatory diseases can sometimes have ocular effects leading to transient symptoms,
Yeah.
and definitely medications. While some drugs can affect tear production, making dry eye worse, which we've discussed, others might have more direct, though usually temporary, effects on visual pathways or eye pressure. Always need to review the full medical history and med list.
This has been incredibly thorough. So for our listeners, if someone experiences this kind of transient vision loss, what are the really crucial details to pay attention to, the things that help figure out what's going on?
Yeah, the specifics are so important. We need to know what triggers it. Does it happen when you stand up? Move your eyes. Is it random? Specific
Yeah.
time of day?
Okay, the triggers. What else?
How long does it last? Is it literally seconds or does it go on for minutes? That duration can be a big clue.
Seconds versus minutes. Got it.
And are there any other symptoms happening at the same time? Any pain, headache, dizziness, numbness, pins and needles?
Associated symptoms, right?
And finally, has it happened before? Is there a pattern? Is it
Yeah.
getting more frequent? All these details help build the clinical picture and narrow down that wide range of possibilities we talked about.
Fantastic points. It really emphasizes the importance of observation when these things happen.
Definitely. Careful history taking is key.
That's a wrap for today's deep dive.
Hope it was helpful.
I hope it brought some clarity to your clinical thinking. Until next time, stay focused, keep learning, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes of Optic Surgeon.